The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as Ambassador Rayan stepped onto the crystalline platform, his boots echoing against a floor that had witnessed 1,000 species bow in reverence. Above him, the holographic displays showed the faces of the Empire's high command beings whose civilizations had conquered stars. When Earth's continents were still forming, beside him stood Era, the expedition's xenobiologist, her tablet tucked under one arm and an expression of poorly concealed amusement dancing across her features. "You are the representatives of humanity?" Grand Executor Zolthar's voice resonated through the chamber, his 16 eyes blinking in sequence. His carapace gleamed with medals from 10,000 successful campaigns. "That's us," Rayan replied cheerfully, hands in his pockets, a gesture that caused several council members to recoil. Hands were for ritualistic positioning, not casual concealment. "Your species was contacted 17 standard cycles ago," continued Zolthar. "In that time, you have refused to submit mineral extraction quotas, ignored our resource allocation protocols," and he paused, mandibles clicking in what might have been discussed. "Established unauthorized colonies in 3 restricted sectors." Era bit her lip, trying not to laugh. Rayan cleared his throat. "About that," Rayan began. "See, we read your protocols for newly discovered species and well ... He glanced at Era, who was now shaking slightly. "We have some questions." The chamber erupted in what the translation matrix struggled to interpret, a mixture of outrage and confusion. "Questions?" Zolthar's voice dropped to a dangerous frequency. "Lesser species do not question the Empire. They comply, contribute, and eventually, if worthy, earn the privilege of serving in our mining fleets." "Right. About that whole lesser species thing," Era interjected, finally giving up on maintaining diplomatic composure. She pulled up her tablet. "We ran some numbers. Your empire spans 14,000 systems, yes?" 14,632. Corrected a blob-like creature that served as the Council's record keeper. "Fantastic. And you've been expanding for how long?" Era's eyes sparkled with mischief. 247 million years, Zolthar stated proudly. Rayan let out a low whistle. Era tapped her tablet. "So let me get this straight. 250 million years, and you've managed 14,000 systems. That's roughly 1 new system every 17,000 years?" "Silence. We've been in space for less than a century," Rayan added, "and we've already colonized 12 systems. At this rate, we'll match your entire empire in about—" "What did you calculate, Era?" 23,000 years. Give or take." A sound emerged from the council, something between a hiss and a groan. The translation matrix labeled it as collective existential discomfort. "Your mathematics must be flawed," Zolthar insisted. "Our expansion follows the sacred protocols perfected over millennia. Survey, assess, request authorization, allocate resources, establish preliminary outposts, wait for council approval, begin Phase 1 construction. How long does that take?" Rayan interrupted. "The process typically requires 3 to 4 centuries per system." Era burst out laughing. She actually doubled over, clutching her stomach. Several council members rose from their seats in alarm, thinking she was experiencing a medical emergency. "I'm sorry," she gasped, wiping tears from her eyes. "It's just, you need permission to colonize?" "From a committee that meets every 50 years? The council's deliberations ensure optimal resource allocation and prevent chaos," Zolthar said stiffly. "Right?" Rayan nodded sagely. "Because nothing says optimal like waiting 400 years to build a mining station." He paused. "Out of curiosity, how many forms does that require?" The record keeper's blob quivered. "For a basic mining station?" "Approximately 17,600 forms across 43 departments." 43 departments? Rayan repeated slowly. He looked at Era. "How many people approved our Proxima Centauri colony?" "Well, Governor Martinez just sort of announced it. Said anyone who wanted to go should pack their bags. I think there was a lottery because too many people signed up." "And how long from announcement to landing?" 14 months. Would have been faster, but we had to wait for the ships to finish construction. The council chamber had gone very quiet. Somewhere in the back rows, a small amphibious delegate made a sound that the translator interpreted as uncontrollable sobbing. "This is impossible," Zolther declared. "Your species lacks the organizational sophistication for such endeavors. You have no centralized resource allocation, no unified command structure. Your planet has over 200 separate governmental entities that regularly disagree with one another." "Oh, it gets better," Era grinned. "Want to know who funded the Proxima mission?" "A billionaire who made his fortune selling flavored carbonated water. He did it because someone on social media said it couldn't be done. Spite-based space exploration," Rayan added helpfully. "It's very motivating." A feathered delegate in the third row fainted. "But how do you prevent chaos?" demanded Zolther. "How do you ensure compliance with safety standards? Resource distribution? Long-term planning?" Rayan shrugged. "We mostly don't. People just do things. If it works, great. If it doesn't, someone else tries a different way. Competition, innovation, that sort of thing. But the waste, the inefficiency." "Funny thing about that," Era said, her tone shifting to something more serious. "We've analyzed your empire's resource utilization. Know what we found? For all your planning and protocols, you're operating at about 15% efficiency. 15%? The rest is lost to bureaucracy, committee approvals, and waiting for permission." She advanced the display on her tablet. Charts and graphs appeared in the air above them. "Your average citizen works 6 hours per day, 4 days per week. Sounds great, right? Except they spend 3 of those hours in meetings about potentially scheduling other meetings. Your actual productive output per capita is staggeringly low." "Our system ensures stability," Zolther protested. But his voice had lost its certainty. "Your system ensures stagnation," Rayan countered. "You've had the same borders for 10 million years. The same technology for 20 million. You haven't had a new idea since before Earth's dinosaurs went extinct." "And let me guess," Era continued, "when someone does propose an innovation, it has to go through the Innovation Assessment Council, which meets twice per century, and requires unanimous approval from all 14,000 member worlds?" The record keeper's blob had turned an alarming shade of gray. "This is outrageous." Zolther rose to his full height, his carapace flashing with warning colors. "You come before this council, refuse to acknowledge our authority, mock our traditions, and expect—" "We expect nothing," Rayan said quietly, his casual demeanor evaporating. "We didn't ask to join your empire. We don't need your resources or your permission. We came here as a courtesy to explain why we won't be following your protocols. You cannot simply ignore galactic law. Watch us." Era stepped forward. "Here's what's going to happen. We're going to keep exploring, keep expanding, keep innovating. Not because we're trying to challenge you, but because standing still isn't in our nature. You can try to stop us, but honestly," she smiled, "you move so slowly you'd still be filing the paperwork to declare war when we've colonized half the galaxy. In fact," Rayan added, pulling out his own tablet, "we're opening up diplomatic relations with about 40 species in your protected territories. They've been waiting 8,000 years for your council to approve their request for industrial technology. We're going to trade with them. Share our tech. Help them build. Actually talk to them like equals instead of assets to be managed." The council chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates shouted in 17 different languages. Zolther's carapace had turned a color that the humans' database didn't have a translation for, but in the back rows, some of the younger delegates, representatives of species who joined the empire within the last million years, were pulling out their own tablets, taking notes, exchanging glances as Rayan and Era turned to leave. Era whispered, "Think they'll actually try to stop us?" Rayan chuckled. "By the time they finish debating it in committee, we'll have invented faster-than-light travel." Behind them, they could hear Zolther calling for order, demanding compliance. insisting on protocols, but they could also hear something else, the sound of younger voices asking questions, challenging assumptions, wondering aloud why things had to be the way they'd always been. The humans had arrived. And the galaxy would never be the same. End.